Hi, this is Miss Hadi from Olympian High School. This is going to be a quick video for my students. It's not for past students. It's not for random people on the internet. So hopefully it's just for my students. This is me taking extra time to help you guys. So hopefully it is going to be helpful for you. You can take your notes on an inspect chart, which I've taught you how to make. This is going to be a video about the Course of Empires section in your reading, which is page 35 on. And in your chapter 2 outline notes, it's going to correspond to the political part if you're doing an inspect chart, the P part. So remember, we're in Southwest Asia, the Middle East, and we've already looked at the rise of the Sumerian city-states. And here we are. We're going to get, after the Sumerian city-states, the first cities in the world with the ziggurats, we're going to get into first empires, the world's first empires. Okay, so as you know, you have these Sumerian city-states that end up being ruled by Sumerian kings. Originally, the political power was in the hands of assemblies, but in times of crisis, a strong authority figure, which eventually became a monarch or a king, took over. So the Sumerian city-states were often ruled by these Sumerian kings. Now remember, Sumer is in the southern part of Mesopotamia. And eventually, we're going to see conflicts as these Sumerian city-states fight amongst each other. The kings fight amongst their neighbors. And we also start to see people coming down from the northern part of Mesopotamia, Semitic peoples, and they're going to start to become more powerful than the Sumerian city-states themselves. But before we get into that part, first I need you to know about Kish. We don't exactly know where Kish was. Kish is a city-state probably located just east of Babylon. Babylon is where my family's from. I was there in 2018 looking at the ruins of the Babylonian Empire. Anyway, the city of Kish is really important in the history of this region, so make sure you know about it. As I mentioned, the city of Kish the king of Kish started to take control over areas beyond it where it controlled to try to prevent some of that fighting. Because that way, basically it's the idea of like, let's attack them before they attack us, and create a larger authority. Okay, as I mentioned, Semitic peoples kept coming down south. Two examples of Semitic people are the Akkadians and the Babylonians, and they're from the north. The first person to create empire, which is a political system which controls a larger area than just its immediate area, is Sargon of Akkad. So in your book, it's called Sargon of Akkad, but when I was in Iraq, I was talking to the historians of the Babylonian Empire, and they helped me pronounce it in their way, which is Sargon of Akkad. So it's up to you how you pronounce it. So this is the world's first, the Mesopotamia's first emperor. So Sargon of Akkad, he rules an empire which is really close to Kish, which I talked about earlier, and Babylon, but we don't know exactly where. He started off as being a minister, which is like he's in the government of, working for the government of the king of Kish. He eventually has a coup to overthrow him. That word coup, you don't pronounce the P, but he overthrows the king, recruits an army, and starts to conquer the Sumerian city-states one by one. Okay, so he has to govern a larger area. He has to conquer this large area, and he tried to use his personal presence in order to keep people in check, to keep them from rebelling. So he often traveled with his armies, and his armies could get to be about 5,000 people. And anywhere he went, his armies had to be fed, and so local populations had to feed and house his armies, which basically the effect of that is it's going to generate local rebellions and unhappiness. So he's unable to maintain control through these chronic rebellions, but he does build a pretty big empire while he's there. And he has to find ways to generate revenue to help support his army. So he does things like control the trade routes, and basically controlling and taxing trade allows him to maintain his large capital of Akkad and to maintain his armies. And many of his successors, which are people that come after him, maintain his empire, but eventually it weakens because of these chronic rebellions that I told you about. And eventually there's going to be another big empire you have to know about, which is the Babylonian Empire. Babylonian Empire. Okay, so I'm going to do another political video on this, starting with the Babylonian Empire, because I'm going to run out of time.